All right, we're back. Hey, I'm Econ Dr. D. We're working on statistics right now, working on some practice problems that I wanted to go over with you guys. Um, what we're working with is going to be descriptive statistics. Really, this is just introductory stuff, so I'm kind of trying to get you guys familiarized with it and show you how to work on it. There's going to be a data set here. Right here it says, consider the Amazon bestsellers data set introduced in 1.26. I'll show you that data set in a minute. I made it myself. The column chart below here displays the number of days that each title has spent in the top 100 to date. That was as of August 15, 2012. The average length of time spent on the bestseller list among these 11 titles was 298.81. Okay, so the first question, part A, is asking you how many of these titles have spent longer than this average on the top 100 bestseller list. Well, it looks like for sure this one did, right? That's the publication manual of the APA. For sure, Unbroken has, and for sure the Hunger Games has. It's a little bit harder to see if Wheat Belly has, but if we look at the data, we can see, right? 298.81 is the average of these. So let's look at the data. Okay, so our data set has a little bit more information. It has the author, it has the publisher, it has the format, whether it's paperback or hardcover. It has how many pages are in the book. It has the list price that Amazon posts, and then it has the price, right, the actual price that they'll charge you, and then it has the number of days on the list. Now, if you recall the average, and we can recalculate that if we want to, the average here was 298.81. We want to know how many of these have spent more than that amount of time on this list. One way to do that would be just to look. Another way is to use a formula if we really want to. So let's see. If this number, that's the number of days on the list for the first book, is greater than the average, we could use greater than or equal to, but since it's a decimal and these are all integers, it's not going to matter. Then we want a 1. Otherwise, we want a 0. So that's a 0. That's because it's been shorter. Now, if we copy and paste this, it's going to give us a problem. Oops, I hit the help button. I hate the help button. The problem is that now it's comparing it, you can see, to this green rectangle here, and we don't want to do that. So I've been harping on this a little bit, but I just wanted to harp on it once more. What we want is if you hit F4, it automatically puts dollar signs there. Those dollar signs, those indicate that this is not a relative reference, this is an absolute cell reference. So when I copy and paste this, I'm telling Excel, don't change this. I'm always going to be comparing to this number right here. I'm going to be changing the blue rectangle, but I don't want to change the green rectangle. So once I hit that, now when I copy and paste it, you'll see that up here, we're still using I13, right? We're still using that one right there. I can copy and paste it again. Control D actually will just fill down. It copies whatever's above it. And that's the way that I usually do this. Control D, Control D, Control D, Control D, Control D. Okay. Or you could select the whole thing like this and press, let's delete all of them. I'll show you. Watch, this works. Control D. There we go. It fills the whole thing down. So once you have one formula correct, it's really fast in Excel to copy that. Okay, so now we have a 1 if it's longer than the average and a 0 if it's shorter. If we could just count them now. Now it's a lot easier to count them. You're less likely to make a mistake. Or you could just add them up, and you can see that there are 3 different titles that are longer. Right? This one, that's I lost my there we go. The Hunger Games is the title of that one. Unbroken, and the publication manual of the APA. Okay, so let's go back to our questions just to make sure we're answering them correctly. And this is where we're going to keep our answers over here on this chalkboard. So part A, how many of the titles have spent longer than this average? 3 of them have. How many have spent fewer than that average? Well, we know that there were 11 titles, and 3 of them spent longer than that, so that means that 8 of them spent fewer days than that. We don't even have to do the math, really. 11 minus 3 is how I figured that out, right? Together they should add up. Unless one of them spent exactly average, and that's unlikely. Okay, the next thing to do is construct a column chart of your own to visualize this pattern with the columns arranged from tallest to shortest. And that's intended to give you guys a little practice playing around with this. But I'll show you how to do that. I'll show you how I did mine, and then I'll show you how I make it a little fancier since I want it to look good. Okay, so what do we want to do? Well, the first thing we want to do is get the data that we're interested in. What we're comparing is the days on the list, right? We're going to select this whole thing, including the column title. Let me drop this down so you guys can see what's up here. We're going to go to Insert, and we want to select a column chart, and we want a 2D column, right? So there's our graph, there's our chart to start with. I don't really like it. I mean, it does something, right? It has a list, but it just has the numbers of the books, and we don't have those numbers listed anywhere. And it says days on list in a bunch of places. We don't really need that. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is we're going to add the horizontal axis labels. So if we click on the data, you can see up here it tells us where it's getting this data. It's a series. And then we right-click on it. We can choose Format Data Series. That's what we want to do. No, we want to use Select Data. Sorry, Select Data. We'll do Format Data Series in a minute. Here's where we have our horizontal category axis labels. So click Edit there. This will give us an opportunity to choose the range. What we want for our range is the titles. We don't want to pick the header there because we only want just the names. And you can see that it's already showing that here, right? Click OK. Now these are a little bit big, right? You can see that they're kind of crowding. Our columns are much shorter than we wanted them to. So make these smaller. We can edit them by right-clicking on it, selecting Font. Let's make them size 9. That's big enough to read still. And we're going to compress these, or condense them, just to push them tighter together. Because you can still read it. It's not totally elegant, but you can still read it, and it's not terrible. Other stuff we want to do. We want to tidy up the chart. We only have one column, right? So we don't need to know what that is really. This right here, days on list, tells us. If we delete that, we get a lot more room. I like this title to be somewhere else. I kind of like it to be overlaid, particularly since this is a small chart. I want to use up. I want to give myself access to the visual space. I don't really like the days on list as a title. I just use that as my kind of placeholder when I was building the data set. I think days in top 100 looks a little bit nicer. And also these bars are kind of small, so if we right click it, select Format Data Series, we can reduce the gap between things. We still want there to be some kind of gap, right? Because this is data that's not continuous at all. These are different books. You can kind of imagine them like books in a bookshelf. We want space between them. Which is actually not like books on a bookshelf, but yeah. Anyway, 80% gap gives us thicker bars, right? Less dead space, so that's nice. Okay, now the question was asking us not just to do this, but also to sort them in order. We can do that before we have our chart, or we can do that after we have our chart. I find it a little bit easier to do it after we have our chart. So I'm just going to move the chart out of the way. We can always move it back later if we want. But we want to sort it by the days on the list, so I'll tell you what, I'm going to delete this column just because I don't actually need it. And we want to select all of our data. Okay, you can do that by click dragging. The way I move around, I really like keyboard shortcuts. So Control left and right moves you from one end to the next. And if there's something missing, like right there, it'll move you to the next blank space. Now if you hold Shift while you do that, it'll select the whole thing. Control Shift right, Control Shift down will select that's how you pick big rectangles really fast. Okay, now we want to sort this. The way to do that is Data, Sort, or yeah, that's probably the fast way to do it. We want to sort it by the days on the list, and the default is smallest to largest, but I'm going to sort it from largest to smallest so that the big ones are on top. Okay, when you click OK, now if you look over at your chart, should still be there. It's automatically sorted like so, right? Now if you want to, what I did and what I sometimes like to do, since I know that the average is 298, you can draw a line in here with an insert shape. It won't be perfect. But it can help you eyeball it, right? So that's not exactly at 300. If you zoom in a lot, maybe you can clean it up a little bit. There we go, something like that. Change the color to red, and we have a chart that has the names of everything, the bars in order, and a line by the average. Okay, so that's done, right? If we want to, we can copy this. I'm not sure if we can paste it onto our answer board. I've never tried to do this. Hey, look, we can. So part C. Just like that. And unfortunately for you guys, it's cutting off the edge a little bit. But if I drag this over here, there you go. Now you can see the whole thing. So we can say part C. Brushes. There we go. That's our chart. Okay, so that takes a little bit of work. You can go back and watch that over, pause it if you want, watch the steps. But you can see that it's pretty fast. You can do other things with it if you want, but that gives us a good option. You could also do by price, if you wanted to see. You could sort them by price just to see if the days in top 100 is related to price. Okay, part D. Look at the pattern and think about bestsellers. What does this mean about the difficulty of cracking the top 100? Why has the publication manual of the APA stayed on there so long? What other insights does the pattern give you? Okay, now this is the part where I have to sound smart, I guess. But yeah, this is what we're trying. This is why we do this, is so that we can do stuff like this with the data, right? The bestseller, or the one that's been in there the longest, is the publication manual of the APA. I don't know if you guys know, but the APA is the American Psychological Association, and there are a couple different style guides that people use. One is the Chicago Manual of Style, and that's used in journalism a lot. Another is the MLA, the Modern Language Association Standard Manual. And that's used by liberal arts, humanities writers. The APA is used for all the social sciences. And my guess is that one of the reasons is that people have to buy this, right? They're required to buy this for courses a lot of the time. The other is that unlike, say, the humanities or journalism, I think people have that as a reference and they bought it a long time ago, and maybe it hasn't changed that much. But unlike the humanities, in the social sciences, fewer people publish books and a lot more produce journal articles. And so maybe they have to cite things more often, more frequently, right? Because if you're writing a book, you need to clean up your citations after 12 or 15 chapters. Whereas if you're writing papers, every time you finish essentially what would be the equivalent of a chapter, that's your paper. And so you have to cite things a lot more often. The Hunger Games has had a lot of prolonged success. Some of that is movie tie-in. And I don't know if they made a movie of Unbroken or if they are, but that might be part of it. It seems like there are a couple that have stayed in the top 100 for there's a number of days. So that APA has been in there for 3 years. Hunger Games has been in there for 2 years. 50 Shades of Grey, right? The 50 Shades series, man, they have a chunk of the paperbacks as soon as they were released. They've been in the top 100 since then. But it seems like it's pretty hard to crack. I'm guessing that there are a bunch of these ones at the very tail that kind of hop in and hop out of the top 10. But it seems kind of tricky. What this tells me, I guess, is that these are ones that have been there for a long time that have a lot of staying power, and those are relatively few. And there are lots that kind of, 50 Shades, I mean, those have been in there for 5 months, and that's like, it's newsworthy. It's a big deal. These other ones are probably here today, gone tomorrow. But yeah, so that's something you can kind of see. It's skewed right when you have something like this. So yeah, hope that's been useful. Hope that you're feeling a little more comfortable with Excel and a little bit more comfortable kind of looking at the data and getting some ideas. If you have any questions, as always, send me an email, leave a comment, send me a message on YouTube. I'm more than happy to do what I can to help. And I'll see you guys next time.